Resentment is one of the biggest causes of relapse. It erodes our mind and consumes us until we can't cope anymore. When this happens, many return to the bottle. But when people have been victims of severe transgressions, is it really possible for them to forgive? Why should they forgive? If they were made to suffer, surely they're entitled to want the perpetrators to suffer as much as they did. In order to forgive, we need to get a better understanding of why we should do so. It's simple, really. Forgiveness is a gift to ourselves. When we carry anger and resentment, we're allowing others to manage our emotions from afar. Our mind is consumed by thoughts of revenge and getting even, and we suffer, not only mentally, but negative thinking often manifests in physical ailment too. So, not only were we wronged at the time transgressions took place, but by carrying resentment, we are reliving the trauma on a daily basis and inflicting further punishment on ourselves. The first thing we need to realise about forgiveness is that we're not doing it for the perpetrator's benefit. By letting go of resentment, by forgiving, we are taking back control of our emotions and freeing ourselves from the bondage of the past. Deep down inside, you know that letting go will bring you peace of mind. Peace of mind is what you find the moment you let go of any resentments. When you forgive, you give yourself permission to live to the full. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending that no wrong occurred. On the contrary, it means that wrongdoing did occur, else there would be nothing to forgive. Yet, in order to free ourselves, we need to stop feeling angry and resentful. In extreme cases, such as abuse, where forgiveness is desirable but extremely difficult, there is an effective process that facilitates release. A process that transports you from hatred to freedom. Steve, my friend, whose story appears at the beginning of the book Alcoholic to Alchemist, initially found it impossible to forgive his foster father for the abuse he suffered as a child. With good reason, you might say, but let's remember that resentment is self-effacing. As we worked through his issues, I became aware that love and hatred were fused together, as often happens in these cases. Survivors of sexual abuse are typically reluctant to declare their love for the perpetrator as they think they will be labelled weird. How can you love someone after he did that to you? After reassuring him that it was understandable and permissible to love his foster father, I recommended that he separate his father's disturbing actions from the person as a whole. This enables a client to see the many different facets of a person instead of just the negative ones. On doing this, Steve began to recognise the positive attributes of his foster father and understood why he'd loved him as well as hating him. At this point, I felt a shift in Steve's energy. He had mellowed somewhat. His hatred had transformed into anger. For the next few weeks, we worked on processing his anger, during which time it emerged that his foster father had also been sexually abused as a child, as is often the case with perpetrators of sexual abuse. By acknowledging the full impact of his father's childhood experience, another shift took place. Steve's anger transposed into understanding and compassion. A year later, after continuous therapy, Steve finally visited his foster father's grave and forgave him. The experience is best described in his own words. He said, I immediately felt a weight had been lifted off my shoulders and knew that I could now move forward. The process of shifting from hatred to freedom will work for almost any problem. Not many people are able to make the shift in one quantum leap. Many don't even get as far as forgiveness. But once they attain a degree of understanding, their dilemma has a tendency to dissipate. The logical progression through hatred, anger, understanding, compassion, forgiveness, and finally, freedom normally transpires as a result of working with a competent therapist or an excellent mentor. If you recognise a need to undergo this process, please see our website for the list of approved therapists and mentors. The benefits of understanding and forgiving others will only be felt if we are prepared to forgive ourselves too. Many people who abuse alcohol are so intent on self-recrimination that they feel that turmoil and hardship are all they deserve. Plagued with guilt, they become obsessed with judging themselves bad and unworthy and sentencing themselves to a life of misery. If you identify with this pattern of self-destruction, as I know many of you do, wake up. Recognise it as the work of the sobriety saboteurs. Their appearance always presents an opportunity for growth. The lesson this time is learn to love yourself. Guilt transpires from self-disdain, the antidote to which is self-love. Self-disdain and self-love are totally incompatible. When we were inebriated, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't consciously set out to harm anyone. The harm we caused was usually a byproduct of our inactive conscience and suspended memory, giving rise to Dr. Jekyll becoming Mr. Hyde. For blame and punishment to be appropriate, there has to be conscious intent to violate another person in some way. And this is very rarely the case with alcoholism. So forgive yourself for your indiscretions. Instead of whipping yourself and becoming an unproductive member of society laden with guilt, use your past errors as feedback to improve the quality of your life in the future. This step would be incomplete without addressing the issue of making amends. Making amends to people for past transgressions is appropriate when you feel your relation with them has been strained. If you feel it is necessary and appropriate to make direct amends, then do so. It's a great house cleaning exercise that fosters humility. In some cases, you might like to make direct amends, but the thought of doing so fills you with reticence and uncertainty. Step 9 offers the perfect solution, one that will see many people benefit from your willingness to evolve into a respected, productive human being. The audio files that follow are split into 2 sections, A and B. There is a great deal of wisdom embedded in both. Listen to the introductions and all will be revealed.